All right, everyone, get ready, because today we are diving deep into this aloe foaming cleanser that I know you're all dying to know more about.
Uh-huh.
And lucky for us, we've also got some really interesting scientific research on acne treatments that we're going to be weaving in as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Should be fun.
And it's a really important topic too,
Yeah.
because acne actually affects so many people.
Oh, for sure.
Like almost everyone at some point, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's not just like a skin deep thing either.
Totally.
The research we're looking at actually talks about the psychological impacts too, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's not something people always think about or talk about.
Right.
Okay, so this cleanser, we've got a 5-star review. Somebody's raving about it, saying how it totally helped with their hormonal breakouts.
Wow. That's amazing.
I know, right? Those are always the toughest.
Yeah, they are.
And they said that they loved that it was oil-free. So I guess that's my question to you. What is the deal with oil-free cleansers?
Yeah.
Why are they so good for acne?
So oil-free cleansers are interesting because they're designed to get rid of all that gunk, like the excess oil and dirt and other impurities, without stripping your skin of the natural moisture that it needs, right?
Right.
And so that's important because if that barrier is compromised, your skin's like, oh no, I need to make more oil.
Interesting.
And then you get more acne.
Ah, so it's kind of working with your skin instead of against it.
Exactly.
This cleanser is also all about being gentle, yet effective.
Yeah.
Which, easier said than done sometimes.
It really is.
The product description kind of hints at a few key ingredients.
Right.
Tell us, what is the science behind what they're claiming here in this cleanser?
Well, I think the ingredient that immediately jumps out is going to be salicylic acid.
Okay.
And that's kind of a mouthful. But basically what that means is it's keratolytic.
Okay.
So it breaks down the bonds between dead skin cells.
Mm.
So think of it like you have all these dead skin cells, and the bonds are kind of like the glue that's holding them together.
Okay.
Salicylic acid comes in, dissolves the glue,
Right.
and then they can shed more easily.
That's
and then
it.
you don't have clogged pores.
And that's what you want, right? You don't want the clogged pores.
Exactly. And this was really cool. The research paper actually highlighted a study where they found that salicylic acid was way better than benzoyl peroxide at reducing inflammatory lesions.
Interesting. So salicylic acid, kind of like the winner.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Okay, so what else? What else is in this?
It also has niacinamide,
Okay.
and this is a form of vitamin B3.
Okay.
And I like to think of this as like the multivitamin of the skincare world because it can do so much.
Really?
Yeah, so the research paper talked about how it can regulate sebum production,
Okay.
which is just a fancy word for skin oil.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really interesting. It can also address inflammation.
Oh, wow.
So it actually inhibits the release of those inflammatory substances that your body's releasing, so it's calming down all that redness.
So it's like a twofer. It's doing double duty.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. No wonder this cleanser's got such good reviews.
Yay.
So the research paper you mentioned goes into all these different treatments for acne. So prescription meds, alternative therapies, the whole 9 yards. So for somebody just hearing this, what is the typical approach for treating acne?
That's a great question. There really isn't a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah.
It really depends on the type of acne, how severe it is, your skin type, medical history, all that. But the paper did emphasize that it's really important to intervene early on
Okay.
because the sooner you can kind of get a handle on it, the less likely you are to have those long-term consequences, like scarring.
Well, that makes sense. So don't wait until it gets really bad. Got it. Early intervention. So you're saying don't wait.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me more about these different treatments you mentioned. We've got topical, like creams and gels.
Right.
And then there's systemic, like actually taking something. What's the difference there?
Yeah, so topicals are usually the first thing that people will try, especially if it's mild to moderate acne.
Okay.
And they're really great because they work right on the surface of your skin
Okay.
to unclog those pores, reduce inflammation, kill bacteria, all that good stuff.
Nice.
Systemic treatments are kind of like the big guns. They work from the inside out.
Okay.
So those are going to be your oral antibiotics or even hormone therapies in some cases.
Oh, interesting. So it's kind of like finding the right tool, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe even like combining them.
Yeah, sometimes you got to do both.
And then you mentioned, and this kind of worries me, antibiotic resistance. Is that a big deal when it comes to acne?
Unfortunately, it really is.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, because what happens is people use antibiotics too much or they don't use them correctly, and that leads to bacteria that are like, nah, I'm not affected by that anymore,
Interesting.
and they become resistant.
Gotcha.
And the paper actually mentioned a study where they found that there's been a huge increase in antibiotic-resistant acne in just the past few decades.
Wow.
So that's a little scary.
Yeah, it is a little scary. So maybe that's where these alternative treatments come in.
Yeah, that's why people are looking for other things for sure.
So this cleanser
Mhm.
we're talking about has sweet basil oil, and the paper mentions basil oil. What's the deal with that? What do we know about using essential oils and all that stuff to treat acne?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because more and more people are into these natural remedies.
Right.
And, we're still learning a lot, to be honest, about how effective they are for acne specifically.
Okay.
But this paper did highlight some cool studies with really promising findings.
Oh, really? Like what?
So one of them was on tea tree oil.
Okay.
And this oil has a compound called terpenophorol.
Okay.
It's a mouthful, I know.
Yeah.
But basically what it does is it's antimicrobial.
Nice.
So it kills bacteria.
Okay.
And some studies have actually found that it can be just as effective as benzoyl peroxide.
Who knew?
I know, right?
That's impressive.
At reducing those mild to moderate acne lesions.
Interesting. So it's kind of like going up against the more conventional treatment.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So I feel like what I'm hearing is a lot of these things are antimicrobial. They're anti-inflammatory. Like that's what we're looking for, right?
Yeah. A lot of times, these plants that have these properties, it's because in nature, that's how they protect themselves
Oh, that makes sense.
against bacteria and all that.
Right. They've got to fight for themselves too.
Exactly.
Okay. So as much as I love a good plant-based solution, and don't get me wrong, I do, we should probably put the disclaimer out there that we need more research.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like always, everyone listening, talk to your dermatologist before you start putting like tea tree oil straight on your face, right?
Definitely. Always a good idea.
Yeah.
It's all about figuring out what's best for you.
Okay, so back to our aloe cleanser that we're obsessed with today.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be gentle and effective.
Yeah.
But what does that actually mean, right? Does it really work?
That's the million-dollar question.
I know, right?
And unfortunately, we can't say for sure without, doing a ton of clinical trials.
Horrors.
But what we can do is look at what's in it and see if the science backs it up.
Let's do it. So we've got the salicylic acid.
Right.
We've got the niacinamide.
Yes.
And you mentioned this 5-star review that said it was amazing for hormonal breakouts. So how does that all connect?
Yeah, so hormonal breakouts, those are usually caused by, like you said, hormones.
Right, go figure.
I know, right?
Shocker.
But specifically androgens, and basically what they do is they tell your skin to produce more oil, and then you get clogged pores, inflammation, all that fun stuff.
Okay, yeah, not fun, not fun.
Not fun at all. So while this cleanser doesn't have anything that's like specifically anti-androgen, the salicylic acid and niacinamide are still working behind the scenes
Okay.
to make it less likely that you're going to have those breakouts in the first place.
Gotcha. Okay, so those hormonal breakouts, the ones that are like deep down
Yes.
under the skin, and they always seem to show up at the worst possible time.
The worst.
I know.
Oh.
So is there something in this cleanser that actually like is good for that specifically?
Well, it all comes down to those hormones, right?
Right.
Like we were saying, it's the androgens that tell your skin, let's make a ton of oil
Oh, fun.
and clog up those pores, right? And that's what leads to all the inflammation and the breakouts. Now, this cleanser doesn't specifically target those androgens directly,
Okay.
but the salicylic acid and the niacinamide, they kind of work together
Okay.
to create like an environment where your skin's like, okay, we don't need to make as much oil.
Yeah. Right.
We're good here.
So you're not fighting the hormones themselves. You're just kind of like
Exactly.
outsmarting them.
It's like we're going to cut them off at the pass.
I love that. Yeah. It's like setting up a roadblock, right? Like hormones, you shall not pass.
Exactly.
Okay, but everybody's skin is different.
Oh, absolutely.
So what works for one person might not work for somebody else.
Exactly. Which is why it's so important to, pay attention to your own skin.
Totally. Know your skin.
Yes, and what it likes and doesn't like.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, the research paper, it mentioned a few other ingredients that might be helpful for acne.
Right.
Green tea extract.
Yeah, there were a bunch.
Tea tree oil. I feel like there was a whole list.
Yeah, the list goes on and on.
And it kind of makes me wonder, like, what if you added all that to this cleanser? What would that be like?
Right. Imagine if you could create the super cleanser with Like all the best botanical extracts
Right.
all working
It
together.
would be amazing.
Right.
A skincare dream team.
Exactly.
Okay, well, my mind is officially blown.
That-
That was so
I
interesting.
know, right?
Thank you so much for like walking us through all the science behind this cleanser, acne treatments in general, all the alternative therapies.
It's a lot to cover.
It is a lot, and we just like scratched the surface here today, but it's so interesting,
And this is a field that's constantly evolving.
which is exciting,
Right. There's always something new to learn.
always. So to everyone listening, keep learning, keep asking those questions. And until next time, take care of your skin. We'll see you soon.